you have a look at costumes that people wore at the time, you'd be absolutely petrified putting those things on today. Sometimes I encourage the orchestra to look at those things to see what we're not wearing. They're huge, the feathers and the whole business. And the Baroque period, as I earlier suggested, is of course related to Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach had such tremendous influence on music that lasts to this day. It informs people who write, whether they like it or not. Much of his music and the music of the day was written for use in churches, and the Bach Chorale is the characteristic style, characteristic kind of music that defines Bach. A famous philosopher once opined that if he had to be marooned on a desert island, he would need only two things. One, a keyboard, and two, the collected chorales of Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach was a very prolific man. He had 23 children. There were two Mrs. Bachs, by the way. The second one had 11 children. And in addition to being prolific, he wrote a lot of music. So you have to understand what the family situation was. Now, should it have come to pass, as we'll find out in a moment, his sons were also, most of them, Johann Christian, Johann Friedman, were also composers of considerable note. Now, to be a composer in those days, you were engaged by royalty or by the church to compose music for their purposes, as this last piece was very specific. So we're going to look at the Bach chorale and how it has influenced writers in subsequent generations. So we are going to play now one of his most famous chorales, Break Forth, O Beauteous Heavenly Light, which in the catalog is number 361. Bach chorale. It deserves to be played in a place like this. For example, suppose one of Bach's sons had traveled to Australia and heard one of the locals singing a song which For example, you might have heard this too.
Once a jolly swagman camped out by a billy bong, under the shade of a coolibah tree. He sang and he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Now suppose Bach or one of his sons got a hold of it and decided to do it in church or chorale style. It might have sounded like this. You can't apply that style to any piece. I said, yes, I can. Name one. So, they're in the university at Dresden, where we will be visiting in May. There is this enormous collection of original hand photographs of music going back to the early Renaissance. It's all cataloged, and much of it has been scanned and is available on the internet. And you look at the scanned copies and you see that incredible chicken scratching, which is almost impossible to read. And it has been my pleasure in the few years that we've been working together here to find works of famous composers that are not available in modern notation, and to translate them and transcribe them and rearrange them. When I do that, people like Bach and Handel are looking over my shoulder. They're there, because all of us stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. So we will conclude today's presentation with a work which is also a church work called Ach, Gott, Herr, which I discovered in a little two-line, left hand, right hand fragment, a scrap, in this museum. And I've expanded it to be playable by this group, and it is absolutely genuine Bach. So please enjoy this last number of Johann Sebastian Bach and Herbert Gardner. And Ach, Gott, Herr. Thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure playing for you, and I hope you enjoyed it.